A large portion of the Jewish nation has returned to its homeland, but the heart, soul, and mind of much of the Jewish nation are still in exile mode. This state of affairs must and will inevitably change. This is Torah Nation TV from Jerusalem, and we are speaking with the head of Machon Shiloh, Rabbi David Bar Hayim. Shalom, Rabbi Bar Hayim.
Shalom.
The Rav, as well as others, speak of Torath Eretz Yisrael, but to many people it is not clear to what this term refers. What about a young Jew, for example, who comes to Israel to study in yeshiva for a year? Is that Torath Eretz Yisrael? Can the Rav elaborate, please?
Before we try and define what Torath Eretz Yisrael is, and I will try and bring a couple of examples, let us first discuss what Torath Eretz Yisrael is not. The Talmud Bavli in Masechet Shabbat Daf Lamed Aleph says as follows, that when a person passes away and is required to give an account of his or her actions in this world, one of the questions that the person is asked is Sipitha li Shu'ah, which means, did you truly yearn for and look forward to the Yeshu'ah? And the word Yeshu'ah, normally translated as redemption or something like that, is explained by Rashi as meaning the words and the promises and the forecasts of the Nevi'im. In other words, when the Nevi'im discuss the Jewish people returning to their land and reconstituting their national existence, their national sovereignty, and their national life in their homeland according to the Torah, that is the general thrust of much of what we find in the Nevi'im, in the prophets. The question the person is asked, therefore, says the Talmud, and explains Rashi, is, did you really look forward to these events? In other words, did you connect to these events? Did this make a difference to you? Was this part of your existence as a Jew? Because it's possible for a Jew to be ostensibly a good Jew, a religious Jew, a Jew who believes in God, living in Chutz La'aretz, performing the mitzvot, and yet, frankly, these issues of when, if, how the Jewish people will return to Eretz Yisrael and what will happen at that time, and whether you're concerned about these things, whether it makes a difference, whether it speaks to you, whether all this resonates with you, it's quite possible to be a Jew for whom these things mean next to nothing, and yet ostensibly be a very good Jew. So the Gemara is telling us that such a person is not really such a good Jew. After all, if you cannot answer that question honestly, in the affirmative, if you cannot say about yourself, yes, tzipita li shu'ah, I really did look forward, I yearned for these things, this was an essential part of my being, and I always felt that something was missing, as long as this had not yet taken place. If a person cannot answer in that fashion, then that person was not misapeh li shu'ah, he was not really looking forward to, it was not part of his world outlook, it was not part of his Jewish existence. And that is a very serious problem. So tells us the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat. So a person who doesn't look forward to these things, who doesn't think about these things, a person who does not make these ideas of Yeshu'ah an essential part of the Jewish philosophy and outlook, and therefore, because outlook determines action, outlook, philosophy, one's general fundamental ideas according to which one lives one's life, these things in the final analysis will decide what you concentrate on and what you think about, what you dwell upon. If a person is not thinking in those terms, then that is a serious problem. And such a person is clearly not connected to the Torah, because the Torah is the Torah of Eretz Yisrael. There is only one true, authentic Torah, and that is the Torah of Eretz Yisrael. If a person is not thinking in terms of Torath Eretz Yisrael, he's not thinking in terms of the Yeshua, which is intrinsically bound up with Eretz Yisrael, with the Jewish people's existence in Eretz Yisrael, now and in the future, then that is not truly Torah. And it's not truly Torath Eretz Yisrael, because Torah and Torath Eretz Yisrael are really one and the same thing.
Then what is Torath Eretz Yisrael?
Before I answer that question directly, I want to mention another Gemara that we find, also in the Talmud Bavli, in Masechet Bava Metziah, Daf Pehei. There it states that Rabbi Zera, it says as follows: Ki Salik La'ar'adi Israel, when he came from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, he came up literally to Eretz Yisrael. Yathev Me'at Tha'niyatha, he fasted, he decreed upon himself, he took upon himself to fast 100 fasts on 100 different days. Kedeh de'lishtakach mineh Talmuda Bavla'a, in order to forget the Torah of Bavel, of Chutz La'aretz, of the Galuth that he had learned in Bavel, which is where he came from, where he grew up, where he studied Torah under the greatest of the sages in Bavel. Ki hechi dela nitradeh, so that this learning of Torah that he had learned in Chutz La'aretz would not disturb or confuse or hold him back. So it says in the Gemara Masechet Bava Metziah. In other words, to come to Eretz Yisrael, to study Torah using the same frame of mind, the same assumptions, the same methodologies, the same approach to the study of Torah, to the concepts of the Torah, to what Torah is in general, that is not Torath Eretz Yisrael. If you come to Eretz Yisrael and study Torah as if you were in Brooklyn or in Amsterdam, then that is not Torath Eretz Yisrael. This is what we learn from Rabbi Zera. Rabbi Zera knew that if I now have moved to Eretz Yisrael and the Torah here is of a completely different order of magnitude, and on a different level altogether, different plane of spiritual, intellectual existence than the Torah of Chutz La'aretz, then I have to actively shed from myself, as it were, like a snake sheds its skin. I have to shed that Torah. That is not to say to forget everything one learned, but to move into a new mode, into a new phase, in order to be able to study and internalize and understand the Torah in a much more profound and authentic way. So, in answer to your question, is a young person who comes from Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael to study Torah for a year or two, is that enough in order to qualify, so to speak, for the term Torath Eretz Yisrael? Is that connecting to Torath Eretz Yisrael? I'm afraid the answer is no. And this is not my answer, this is Rabbi Zera's answer. As for the question, what is Torath Eretz Yisrael? Well, the truth is one could write, and one should probably write a book, or many books on this subject. But let us begin at the beginning. Let us begin with some very simple, fundamental concepts. Rav Kook, in the very first paragraph of the book known as Oroth, speaks about the difference between the Yahadut of the Galuth and the Yahadut of Eretz Yisrael. What is the difference, he says? He says the only true form, true, that is to say, sustainable and vibrant form of Torah in Chutz La'aretz is a Torah which is based on exactly those words that we mentioned from Masechet Shabbat. Sipitha Yeshua. Did you look forward to? Were you living those ideas of Yeshuat Am Yisrael in Eretz Yisrael in the future, even if it hasn't yet happened in your own time? Are you looking forward? Is this something which speaks to you? Is this something which resonates with you? If Judaism in Chutz La'aretz is based on that tzipiyah Yeshua, on that looking forward, that yearning, then it is still a viable system. If it hasn't got that, then it's not truly a viable system at all, and eventually it will cease to exist. On the other hand, says Rav Kook, what is the Torah, or what is the Yeshua? The Yeshua is the Torah, or is the Yahadut, is the Judaism that Jews live in Eretz Yisrael. That is the Yeshua. When you are asked the question, when a person dies and is asked that question, Sipitha li Yeshua, the question is, did you look forward to the Yahadut, the existence of the Jewish people as a nation, and that form of Torah, of Jewish civilization and culture and thought and action, that kind of a Jewish society described by the Torah? Did you look forward to that thing called the Yeshua? The Yeshua, says Rav Kook, is the Torah, is the Yahadut of Eretz Yisrael. So the Torah of Eretz Yisrael is not a technical term. It's a very deep and profound concept, because the Torah of the Galuth, or the Gola, the Torah of Chutz La'aretz, is at best some kind of a life support system. It's a way to maintain the national body of the Jewish people at some level of existence, just like you maintain the vital functions of the body of a human being in a coma who's not dead, and you don't want them to die, so you keep them alive, but they're not really alive, they're not really functional, they're not really there. In the same way, the Jewish people in Chutz La'aretz are not really there. That's the truth. Many people may not like to hear this truth, but that is the truth. That is the fact. The Yahadut of Chutz La'aretz is simply about surviving till the next generation, so that eventually we can get to the point of Yeshua. So we can, and therefore we have to be Mitzapeh Yeshua, as the Gemara tells us. The Torah of Eretz Yisrael is the true Torah. It's not as if there are two versions of the Torah, you can choose whichever you like, the Torah of Chutz La'aretz or the Torah of Eretz Yisrael. It's not so. There is only one true, authentic, comprehensive, majestic, and profound Torah, and that is a Torah as we find it in the Tanakh. That is a Torah of Eretz Yisrael, as it finds its expression in the first of all in the Tanakh, and later in all the other Torah sources which originate in Eretz Yisrael, whether it's the Mishnah or the Talmud Yerushalmi, etc. Whereas those sources, those books which originate in the Galuth, by definition are dealing with the task and the necessity of formulating some type of Jewish existence, even though it's not a very vibrant and not a truly sustainable one, and not something that is authentic. Nevertheless, it is something. It's keeping the patient alive until something better comes along, or something better can be done. So we have the Yahadut of Chutz La'aretz, says Rav Kook, is the Tzipita L'Yeshua Yahadut, the Judaism of looking forward to something greater. Whereas the Yahadut of Torath Eretz Yisrael, the Yahadut of Eretz Yisrael, is the Yeshua. That is the thing to which you are looking forward. And that is something that we have to understand. On top of that, there is the natural corollary of what we just said, and that is that in Chutz La'aretz, in the Galuth, Judaism was required to focus almost entirely on the spiritual, on spirituality, and the study of Torah. Even though the Mishnah tells us that Lo hamidrash ikar ela hama'aseh, it is not the study that is the main thing, but the actual putting into practice. And just as the Gemara tells us, Gadol ha-Talmud shemevili ma'aseh, the study of Torah is great because it brings about and sets in motion things in motion so that it will come into reality, it will be actualized. Nevertheless, in Chutz La'aretz, where you cannot actualize much of the Torah, and much of it therefore is almost a dead letter, and therefore hypothetical or virtual, what you can do mainly is the study, and be connected to the Torah through the study of it, as a kind of a theory, so that you won't forget. As the Sifrei says, that the Jews keep the Torah in Chutz La'aretz, so they won't forget, so that when they come back, they'll return, they will know what to do. In the same way, the Talmud, the study of Torah in Chutz La'aretz, becomes the ikar, becomes in fact the only and major linchpin on which the Judaism of Chutz La'aretz revolves. Whereas in Eretz Yisrael, which is the Yeshua, as we explained, we are now in a place, in a situation, in a time when we have to discuss putting this into practice. And not just discuss it, but actually do it. Put it into practice, to live it. In other words, in Chutz La'aretz you're reading the instruction manual. In Eretz Yisrael, it's time to start using the machine. That is one aspect of Torath Eretz Yisrael.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar Hayim. And a word to our viewers. If you would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with Rabbi Bar Hayim in honor or memory of a loved one, or if you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.